Good morning, happy Monday. Jackie here from TBA Law and going live, join Jackie at 10. For the next 2 weeks, I am actually, next week is the long weekend, so I won't be available. And the Monday following, I'm also not available. So after today, won't be back until the 28th of March. But all these lives do get saved onto the page, so there's plenty of videos and topics there you can go back and have a look at, search through the topics because we have covered a lot of these. We do put up a post over the weekend about what today's topic is going to be, but if there's anything that you want me to specifically talk about, any area or answer or question that you have, you're quite welcome to submit it, and I can attempt to answer it in this broad general way that I'm doing, just providing legal information here. So today I wanted to talk about the different ways that couples can own real estate. Now this is important for a lot of reasons. It's important for estate planning and succession. It's important for wealth generation, if that's what you're doing in terms of investing in real estate. It's important from a tax perspective as well. So all of these things, knowing how you own your real estate is really important. Now, the main way that couples own their main residence is jointly. So we tend to assume that when a couple is buying a place that they're going to live in, we're going to put it in joint names. Now that means that the couple jointly owns 100% of the property. So if something happens to one of them, the other is left as the sole owner. Okay, so you don't have a specific proportion of the property, it's jointly 100%. Okay, so that is how joint ownership works. And that's the best one for your primary place of residence, because if you own it in another structure, for example, there can be tax consequences. You don't have to pay capital gains tax or state land tax on your principal place of residence. So best to have it in your own names. You can also own it in your own names as what's called tenants in common. Now this means that you can actually record a specific proportion of the property that you own. And look, this might be done for tax reasons. It may also be done for, particularly on investment properties, but it may also be done in a blended family if one person is bringing more and putting in more than the other person. And the other thing that it means is that because you own specific proportions, you can leave your own proportion to your children from your first marriage rather than to your spouse. So that might be a reason for owning something as tenants in common. So you could, for example, own it as tenants in common in equal shares, which means instead of jointly owning 100%, it means you each own 50% of the property. It doesn't have to be 50-50 though. You could record it as 99% and 1%. You could record it as 75-25. So whatever percentage you want, you can do that as tenants in common. So as I said, less likely to be your primary place of residence that you do that on, but certainly on investment properties, it might be something for tax reasons, because then, 99% of the property might be owned in the name of the person who doesn't pay much tax, who has a low taxable income. So then the investment, the rent that's coming in on that investment mainly goes into the tax return, 99% of it, of the tax return of the person who has the lower income. So, could do it that way. To own property as tenants in common with people other than your spouse, it would be a better idea than jointly, generally. So if you're starting to invest in real estate with a brother or a sister or something like that, tenants in common may be the way to go, because then you specifically own a portion. Other ways you can own property is basically to own it in another entity. So instead of it actually being in your own name, you might own it in a trust, or you might own it in your superannuation, or there may be some other kind of company structure. particularly if you're investing in commercial property. So you may actually have a company that's the trustee of a trust, for example. So, you know, if it's a wealth building thing for a family, you might have a family discretionary trust which starts building wealth through real estate and owns the real estate. If you're investing with other investors, you might have a unit trust, and the unit trust owns the property so that each investor has a certain number of units. So that might be a way to go. Or then it's not done as much, but for a while there, it was fairly popular to use your self-managed super fund to buy real estate. That's harder because there's not many banks now lending on it. But if you have the cash in your super, you could buy real estate in your superannuation. It's potentially an expensive way of doing it, but you know, the most common situations that I see where it is done is particularly small business owners, and their super fund then owns the commercial premises where they're running the business. So it's a way of getting the rent from that business out and into your super. So there you go, there's a few ways of owning property, but the main takeaway that I want you to have is those first two, which is joint proprietors or tenants in common. So joint proprietors, again, yes, definitely for your principal place of residence. When you own things jointly, you jointly own 100% of it. And so from a succession point of view, it automatically passes to the other owner if something happens to one of you. Whereas tenants in common means you each own a proportion of the property rather than together as a whole. You each own, for example, 50%. So you can leave your 50% to whomever you want. You don't have to leave it to the other owner. So those are the main takeaways. But then I briefly also discussed the different entities that you could own real estate in. And look, it comes down to your overall primary objective. Is it wealth generation? Is it tax reduction? Is succession your main objective? So once you've worked out those things, you then work out, well, which way is the best for me, given this is what I want to achieve. So I hope that's helpful. This video will be posted onto the page, so it'll be there. If it's relevant for anyone else you know, please, by all means, tag their name in the comments, or you can always share it with them privately on Messenger. If there are any other questions you have, you can message us through this page on Facebook, or our web page is there, and you just have a look on that. The Meet the Team page has all our emails, so you can email us directly. So have a great couple of weeks. Like I said, next Monday is the long weekend, so won't be available. So I actually won't be here to do another Join Jackie until the 28th. So I'll see you then. Take care.